Just when a powerful king was about to achieve his ultimate aim, he finds himself starting from the very beginning. Now he finds himself in a battle against evil, comforted at the thought that he had trained 10 great emperor-level experts in his previous life. The story unfolds at the Lightning Altar in Qingyun Continent. There, Du Xuanchen tells himself that it has been tens of thousands of years, and as he can attract the tribulation cloud and use its lightning strikes to unseal his Danshan, and he would finally be able to break through the true Tuai realm. As Xuanchen tries to use his sword to hit the lightning, his third disciple tells him that she is ashamed of being so useless, and she cannot suppress the tribulations anymore. The elder disciple also tells Xuanchen that his plan is too dangerous. Then the other disciples too tries to talk him out of it. But he climbs the tall mountain and tells them that the only reason why they cannot ascend to the Saint Realm is because of him. Another disciple then tells him that it is because of his tutelage that is why they could get to where they are willing to exchange their lives' cultivation to unseal their master's Danshan. Xuanchen begins to think of how he was born a genius and how he has also trained geniuses, but because of the innate seal on his Danshan, he is stuck at the Tuai training realm. He tells himself that he has the only option of using the lightning tribulation to break the seal, or he has to die while trying. Xuanchen immediately rushes and tries to break the tribulation, but his disciples become worried that he may not be able to beat the tribulations. Suddenly the lightning hits Xuanchen and he falls to the ground, then the tribulation devours his body. 700 years later, Xuanchen reincarnates into another body as his soul had escaped and ended up in the body of a talentless descent of the Gu family. He realizes that the seal that has been on his body for thousands of years is broken, and he also learns that the original owner of the body is married to Luo Shengshu, who shattered his Danshan and crippled his cultivation. He also learns that she locked him up and tortured him for days, and she told him to feed into the dogs. The Gu family elders set up a meeting for Xuanchen's younger sister, Gu Yuhan, as they notice that she is resisting the marriage they had set up for her with Ling Ba. The Grand Elder begins to scold Yuan for being pushy as Ling Ba had come because he thinks highly of her, and he also tells her that the elders have already agreed on the marriage for her. Ling Ba tells Yuan that he did not come to ask for her hand in marriage as there is no one in the Gu family who can stop him. Then he also tells her that he would take care of her, and immediately he instructs his men to take her away. As the men try to take her away, they are beaten up by Xuanchen, who comes in and tells Ling Ba not to say that the Gu family has no one. Yuan quickly goes to hug her brother, and he comforts her that he is back, but Ling Ba stands up and tells Xuanchen that he is eager to die, and he would tie him up and make him watch how he would enjoy his sister in their bridal chambers. Ling Ba immediately charges at Xuanchen, and he tries to stab him with his sword, but Xuanchen also takes a sword from one of his men and uses it to hurt Ling Ba. The Grand Elder immediately begins to accuse Xuanchen of trying to ruin the Gu family by hurting Ling Ba, and Xuanchen tells him that the elders are acting like wolves against their own, but wagging their tails like a bunch of dogs for outsiders, as a mere descendant of the Ling family has forced them to beg for his mercy. Xuanchen also tells the Grand Elder that there is nothing left to ruin in their family name, but the Grand Elder gets furious, and he begins to run towards Xuanchen, asking him if he is the one ruining the family. The Grand Master asks Xuanchen if he dares to talk to him in an outrageous manner, and he also yells at him that he is going to destroy him and make him apologize to Ling Ba. The Grand Elder attacks Xuanchen with the Heavenly Retribution sword technique, but Xuanchen does not feel bothered, and he immediately returns the attack with another sword technique that seems strange for him. Then Xuanchen tells the Grand Elder that he has lived for too long, and it is time for him to die. Xuanchen uses the sword technique to kill the Grand Elder, and everyone in the room becomes shocked as Xuanchen, whose cultivation is in the Tuai realm, is able to defeat and kill an elder whose cultivation is in the spiritual realm. The elders of the three clans sees that the sword technique Xuanchen used on the Grand Elder is called the Emperor's Scripture, and they know that it is a technique created by the comprehension of martial arts that a warrior has accumulated throughout their life and assimilated into the heavenly principles when they reach the Emperor level. The Elder begins to wonder that it can be a cultivation technique capable of suppressing all the enemies in the world. They also think that Xuanchen is able to use the technique because he might have found the complete ancient sword technique and has comprehended its true essence. Xuanchen consoles his crying sister as he tells her that everything is over. Then he begins to wonder why his disciples' marks are everywhere after 700 years, but he questions why there are broken pages. He also begins to think that after he reincarnated, he holds countless secrets of martial arts and emperor-level techniques in his heart, including the emperor's scriptures. But the foundational strength of the current body he is using is too weak, and his cultivation is insufficient, so it makes it difficult for him to forcefully use the emperor's scriptures for long. One of the other elders immediately tells the men present that Gu Xuanchen is able to master the true meaning of the family-inherited sword techniques, and that makes him the rightful master of the family. The men immediately bows down to Xuanchen, and he tells them that they know how to read the situation so he does not have to waste more energy. The three clans hold a meeting later that night. They asks the elder of the three clans if they should acknowledge Xuanchen as the next leader, as he has offended Li Lu and Ling families. Then the elder of the three clans tells them that if Xuanchen is able to overcome the brunt, if any issue that arises, then they would be able to share in his victory. But if he fails, they would hand him over. Yuan thanks Xuanchen for helping her, and she commends him for being strong. Then she tells him that if he continues, they would not be bullied again, but as he is about to reply to her, he suddenly begins to cough out blood from his mouth. Yuan immediately takes Xuanchen to a room and tells him to rest for a while, but he tells her to lower her voice, because the other people must not hear her, so that she would not be in any form of trouble again. He then begins to think that the body he is using is very weak, and that is what caused him to be like that, and he also has to upgrade as soon as possible, so that he would be able to conquer his future challenges. Xuanchen begins to go through the steps of upgrading his body as he tells himself that he can ascend into the sacred domain if the Emperor's realm shatters the void. He remembers how he was unable to extract spiritual energies because of the seal on him, but after his rebirth he would try to make up for the regret in his past life. Xuanchen continues to think of how he would temper his current body and improves it into a stronger physique. Then Yuan tells him to adjust his breathing as she would take care of him and not let anyone bother him. Then she leaves. Xuanchen notices that Yuhan was hiding a dagger close to her, as she is planning to kill herself because of the situation with the Ling family. But he immediately begins to meditate as he wants to quickly upgrade his body into a stronger physique. He then chooses the Xuoyo technique as the basis, and suddenly there is a huge flow of energy in the room, and as it escapes outside the house, Yuman sees it and tells herself that her brother has broken through the little spirit realm and is stepping into the spirit stage. Xuanchen becomes excited as he notices that the flow of energy is the spiritual energy he had wanted to introduce to his body in his countless past lives. Meanwhile, in the Xuoyo sect, one of the disciples notices that the statue of the ancestor had moved. Then he informs the patriarch of the sect, who asks them of which genius can attract such attention from the ancestor. Another disciple then tells the patriarch of Luo Shengshu in Anyang City who broke through the little spirit realm at the age of 18. The patriarch immediately sent a disciple to send a message to invite Luo Shengshu into the Xuoyo sect. Xuanchen begins to meditate again, and he notices that Yuhan is looking at him in a weird way. But when he asks her, she tells him that she is happy for him after he is able to step into the spirit level. Xuanchen begins to think that in his previous life he was obsessed with the way to unravel seals, so he did not pay attention to emotional matters. The guard announces to Xuanchen that Miss Lu has been taken to the Xuoyo sect by Elder Mohi, and he also sticks a Xuoyo order into the roof of the Lu family. One of the men that came to inform Xuanchen about the order also tells him that the Gu family is isolated and Luo Shengshu has divorced him, so they have no choice but to repair the ancient sword technique with the Lu family. Suddenly, Xuanchen becomes furious, and he throws a cup of tea at the man that talked to him as he asks the man the rights he has to make decisions for him, and he faces everyone else and tells them that the Lu family would be destroyed and Luo Shengshu would die. The elder of the three clan begins to think of how he wants to push Xuanchen to fight the Lu family so that he can reap the benefits for himself, and he also begins to strategize on how he would ascend the throne once Xuanchen is gone. The elder then tries to talk the other men into attacking Xuanchen, but they do not answer him, and he tells them that as Xuanchen is sitting, he is weak as he does not have a sword with him, so he cannot use the technique on them. Suddenly, Xuanchen uses his power and begins to form a sword, and the elder realizes that it is an intense sword as Xuanchen is a master. But before the elder could do anything, Xuanchen immediately attacks him and kills him. Xuanchen goes ahead to kill more men, and he instructs the other men to carry the corpse out, and he leaves, but one of the men goes to meet Yuhan, and as he tries to talk to her, she immediately uses her dagger to kill more men. The other people present become scared as she tells them that she is not too kind like her brother to spare whoever dares to be unfaithful to her brother. The people become scared and they begin to proclaim their allegiance to Shuanshan, but Yuan tells them that her brother must not know what she has done. Yuan goes to her room, and she begins to cry. Then she consoles herself that she needs to be strong for her brother and look after him to make sure no one disobeys him. Shuanshan goes into the city and he stands in front of Pill's pavilion, but he begins to think of how it would help him. Then a lady comes to ask him what he wants, and he tells her that he has come to sell a pill recipe. As Shuanshan enters the pavilion, people begin to talk about him as a piece of trash that cannot do anything, but he walks into the pavilion manager's office, King Q, and she goes through the recipe and immediately tells him that his recipe is not accepted. King Su tells Shuanshan that she has not heard the name of the herbs in the recipe, and she tells him if he wants to play her for a fool, as he was sent out of the pavilion once by Luo Shengshu. Shuanshan becomes confident as he tells her that the top genius in the pill pavilion could not recognize a good recipe, and she immediately asks him if he wants to go on a pill bet with her, but he tells her that he is not going to gamble with her. Shuanshan goes to their alchemy room, which is equipped with top-notch alchemy cauldron and a tempered earth fire. Then they both agree to refine the second rank-breaking spirit pill, and after half an hour, the winner would be determined by the quality of the pill. He begins to use his fire control technique as he thinks it is of no effort for him, but he notices that the earth fire is too weak, and he immediately upgrades the fire he shoots at the cauldron. Then he becomes satisfied. When King Su tries to refine the pill, she notices that the earth fire is weaker than normal, and she suddenly hears a loud noise, and as she checks, she sees her master Tao Hai, who tells her that the high-level herbs he had gotten ruined as a result of the weak earth fire. King Su asks her master about the recipe she had seen from Shuanshan, and he tells her that the recipe is for a 4th-rank high-level pill, and he also tells her not to have anything to do with such kind of herbs, as it is too high for her level. The master then begins to hit her, as he notices that she might have gambled with someone because of the kind of expression she has on her face. King Shu becomes angry and tells her master that she is going to beat Shuanshan by refining alchemy, but as she sits down and calls her fire control art, she immediately notices that the earth fire is beginning to dry up. Master Tao Hai tells King Su that she is not the only one, as he is also not able to control the earth fire, which caused the pill furnace to burst. He also adds that it seems like all the rooms that release the earth gyre are like that. Suddenly, they see a huge impact of fire, and they notice that it is Shuanshan's earth fire. Then King Sui tells her master that Shuanshan's earth fire is very strong. Shuanshan comes out and holds 2 pills in his hands, and King Sui asks her master if the pills are the 2-pattern spirit pill, and her master begins to explain the kind of pill it is to her. Shuanshan then commends Master Tao Hai for being a knowledgeable man, but King Shu goes to meet Shuanshan and tells him that she is not afraid of death, and since he won the gamble, he can take her life, but her master quickly pulls her back, and he apologizes to Shuanshan and immediately hits King Shu for being so ignorant. Shuanshan goes ahead to ask Master Tao Hai of a man named Tao Yun, and the master explains to him that Tao Yun is called after the ancestor, and he also explains how he could not learn more from his ancestor. Shuanshan then tells Tao Hai that he owes his ancestor a favor, and he is going to return it to the descendant, and immediately he begins a mind transmission, and he helps him to complete his mysterious heaven fire control art. Shuanshan remembers how Tao Yun had helped him while he was in the key training realm, and he did not believe that his descendant would fall into the King Yun continent. Shuanshan goes to meet King Sui, and she begins to tell him to kill her, but he slaps her very hard and tells her not to be proud, as she does not have anything to be proud of. He also tells her that if her master is pampering her, not everyone would be able to do so, and Master Tao Hai thanks Shuanshan for raising his hand at King Sui. Shuanshan suddenly sees the Gu family's urgent arrow as he begins to wonder at the kind of emergency that is happening in the Gu family. Meanwhile, at the Gu family house, members of the Ling family along with the patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Xiaoshan, begins to ask the people there about the whereabouts of Shuanshan, but none of them tells them anything. Ling Xiaoshan orders his men to start killing the men one after the order to see if one of them would remember, but he goes to meet Yuhan and tells her that he is not going to kill her because Ling Ba likes her, and he would make sure she marries him. Shuanshan comes in and tells the patriarch of the Ling family that because of what he had said to his sister, he would make sure there is no Ling family in existence. One of Shuanshan's men then quickly tells Ling Xiaoshan that he is not aware of how Shuanshan had much energy, as he only had little spirit power in him. After identifying the traitor, Xuanchen immediately brings out his intense sword and kills the traitor, but Ling Xiaoshan is determined to kill Xuanchen with his bare hands. Xuanchen yells at Ling Xiaoshan not to charge at him with such a low power, and immediately the two men begin to fight using different skills against each other. Yuan becomes surprised as she sees that her brother is able to use the Xiaoyo sect skill that is meant for elders who are eligible. The other men from the Ling family begin to yell at Xuanchen as they all vow to protect their patriarch, while Xuanchen and Ling Xiaoshan continue to fight. Ling Xiaoshan tries to escape, but Xuanchen tells him that they would not be able to go, and he immediately defeats and kills all of the men that came from the Ling family. Master Tao Hai brings some of his disciples to come and help Xuanchen with the issue in the Gu family, but on getting there, he sees that Xuanchen has conquered the Ling family, but he decides not to offend Xuanchen as he sees that he is a great man. Yuan goes to meet her brother, and she asks him how he was able to use the Xiaoyo sect technique. But she adds that if her brother is still inseparable with Luo Shengshu, she would not forgive him. Master Tao Hai comes to Xuanchen and also asks the same question as Yuan, begins to get angry, but Xuanchen asks Master Tao Hai, what is the relationship between the Xiaoyo sect and the one in Penglei Mountain? Master Tu begins to explain how the Xiaoyo sect in Penglei Mountain created the one in Qingyun continent. Xuanchen remembers how he created the sect hundreds of years ago, and how he handed it over to the emperor. He also asks Master Tao about Luo Shengshu's younger brother, Lu Tao, but Master Tao tells him that as the descendant of the Lu family and head of 8 families, no one dared to provoke Lu Tao, even thought he had done a lot of evil things in the city. Xuanchen immediately begins to laugh as he wants to go and rectify the Lu family, but as he is running, he tells Yuan to let Master Tao take care of any wounded person in the Gu family as he is going out to have some fun. Meanwhile, at the Lu family, they are having a banquet to celebrate the Xiaoyo order the Lu family got. But as they were celebrating and presenting gifts to the Lu family patriarch, Luo Sanai, they suddenly hear a loud noise and see a man being beaten by another man. Xuanchen tells them that he has come to give the Lu family patriarch a gift, and they suddenly see their young master Luo under Xuanchen's feet. All the men yell at Xuanchen for getting himself into trouble, but the patriarch tells him to let Luo Tao go. Xuanchen tells them that the last person that threatened him has turned into ashes, and he immediately tells them that he has another gift, and he drags Lu Tao and kills him, which makes everyone present at the banquet shocked. Luo Sanai immediately stands up and charges at Xuanchen, but he quickly throws his son at him, and Lu Tao tells his father that Xuanchen has abolished his cultivation in Danshan. Luo Sanai becomes very angry, and he tells Xuanchen that he is going to make him pay for what he has done to the Lu family. And he immediately charges at Xuanchen. Then he tells him that he would not be able to fight against thousands of men because of his low-level cultivation skill. Xuanchen immediately tells the patriarch and the other men present that he has come to wipe out the Lu family, and he immediately takes the Xiaoyo order and controls it, which makes the people become surprised as he could control the order. Xuanchen and Lu Sai continue to fight, and at one point he uses the formation formula of the Xiaoyo order, which makes Lu Sai surprised. Xuanchen beats up Luo Sanai, and he lifts him up and tells him that he has a piece of advice to him, not to mess with the Gu family when he incarnates. Xuanchen immediately kills Luo Sanai, and when the other patriarchs of other families sees that Xuanchen has killed Luo Sanai, they come to bow before him and tells him that they wish to follow him, but he tells them that he gives them half an hour to pack the treasures of the Ling and Lu family. Xuanchen's second uncle comes to give him the reports of the treasures of the Ling and Lu families, and the uncle tells him to take over the tax payment of Anyang City, but Xuanchen tells them that the hidden dangers of the city has been eliminated, so he would leave the affairs of the city to be decided by his second uncle and Yuan to decide. Yuan asks her brother where he is going to, and he replies that he is heading to Xiaoyo sect, and he begins to think that the Lu family still has a fish that slipped through the net, and he has to wipe out the danger completely. Yuan asks her brother why he suddenly wants to go to the sect, and he tells her that she has been unable to cultivate because of the fact that she has a chaotic celestial body. Xuanchen tells Yuan that he has to get the primordial fruit for her so that she would be able to start cultivation, as he would not be able to protect her all the time. Yuan hugs Xuanchen, and he begins to think of when her habit of hugging people would stop. Then soon, he begins to go, and his second uncle tells him that the primordial tree is a treasure of the sect, and they would not hand it, but he replies his uncle that he has a way of getting the fruit from them. Xuanchen goes to the mountain, and he tells himself that there is no mistake in remaining spiritual power fluctuations of the thousands of the illusory space formation should be here. But he notices that the fluctuations are much, and he tells himself that he did not expect that the fluctuations of the spiritual power of the array symbol would attenuate so much as he took him much time. Suddenly, he uses his powers to open a place that looks like a portal, and soon he sees the Xuoyo sect after hundreds of years. But he begins to remember how he helped his 10th disciple to grow the primordial tree and put out beasts to save the tree from trespassers. But he notices that his disciples' grandchildren relied on the big array of guardians after the death of their ancestor. He begins to go towards the sect, but he sees a Tier 2 spirit beast water dragon fighting with a girl. Then he notices that as she begins to run for her life, she uses a sword technique to attack the dragon. Xuanchen rescues the girl, and he asks her if all the other disciples are also of her level, but she is surprised, and suddenly, he uses the martial art of the sect to defeat the beast water dragon, and the girl becomes surprised as watches him complete the steps correctly. After defeating the dragon, Xuanchen notices that his skills have helped the girl to cultivate, and he also remembers that he could not do that in his past life as he only teaches his disciples face to face. The girl also notices that it was because of Xuanchen that she was able to break through to the next level of cultivation, and she concludes that he must be a master in the skill. She also remembers what the elders tell them about some people being able to continue to practice hard and gain more skills. The girl introduces herself as Mo Qingyan. As she thanks him for his guidance, then Xuanchen asks her if there is any newly accepted names. Lu Shengshu is in the sect, and Qingyan tells him that after Elder Lu has joined the sect master and several elders have worked together to open the primordial blessed land for Lu to practice. Xuanchen also asks her a few questions, and she answers them. Then he tells her to summon the rest of the disciples together, and the mountain guards as well, to gather at the Lingyuan Peak. Qingyan tells him that she would do so, and as he begins to leave, she tells him to wait for her. But she sees that she could not catch up with him. Then she begins to wonder why he does not have a flying spirit weapon, and she thinks he is trying to test her agility. Then she yells at him that she would not disappoint his expectations. Xuanchen remembers how fast he used to be in his past lives, but due to his current weak body, he is feeling as slow as a turtle. He also thinks of how he used his method of expanding a pill to expand the Danshan more than 10 times, although speed of practice would be slower than others, but it can accumulate more spiritual power and slowly lay a solid foundation. Then he also looks at Qingyan and tells himself that if she can continue to cultivate like she did before, she would be compared to the disciples' grandchildren. Qingyan runs after Xuanchen, and soon they get to Lingyuan Park, and as he is about to enter a portal, he tells her that she should begin to practice what she has comprehended earlier as she waits for the rest of the disciples. Xuanchen enters Quanling River, and he begins to think that the spiritual energy has weakened a lot. Then he suddenly uses his powers to reveal an underground temple, and he watches as the temple is. Then he tells himself that the spiritual energy around the temple has faded over the years, but with a little energy, it is still better than some places in the southern part of the world. Xuanchen sits down, and he begins to meditate. Then Qingyan immediately saves him from the sword of a disciple of the sect, and they begins to question her for bringing an outsider to the forbidden area of their sect. But she tells them that he was able to get in by using a dissolving technique, which shows that he is a member of their sect. One of the disciples then accuses Qingyan of having an affair with the strange man, and when they were caught, she is lying to cover up their act. But suddenly the disciple falls to the ground, and the other disciples notice that he had been attacked by Xuanchen. Xuanchen stands up, and he tells them to keep quiet as they're all blind. Then another disciple yells at the other disciples to charge at Xuanchen, but he beats them up and they all become weak. One of them tells another that the strange man is stronger than them, so they would rather not fight him, but the wounded disciple named Kuyuan drags the disciples and tells them to attack Xuanchen again. Kuyuan tells the mountain guards that it is their job to die for the sect, and he tells them to arrest Qingyan and Xuanchen, but Qingyan begs them not to provoke Xuanchen as his martial arts are profound and unpredictable, so that they would not lose their lives. As the mountain guards try to attack him, he uses his light to hit the ground, and they all fall into the water. Then he tells them that it is ridiculous to send the mountain guards to defeat a strong enemy while the disciples shrink back. He then instructs them to follow him into the temple to practice first, and soon they are all in the temple meditating, and the disciples begin to admire the kind of energy Xuanchen is using as they have not seen anything like it. Suddenly, Xuanchen passes the energy to all the disciples at once, and they begin to break through their little spirit realms. Kinyan thanks him for helping her to break through 2 levels in a row after rigorous training exercises have failed, but she notices that Nai Kuyuan has escaped after the confrontation with Shuanshan, and he would probably go and tell his uncle. Suddenly, Shuanshan notices the celestial thunder tribulation, and he knows it is because he has unlocked another level of knowing the secrets of heaven, and he tells himself that if he faces such big tribulations, he would be burnt to ashes. Kinyan tells him to be calm, but he tells her that he wants to know the kinds of power the prodigal sons would have. The thunder tribulations begins and Kinyan becomes worried that the tribulations would hit them, but Shuanshan tells her that she is safe with him, and suddenly, before the thunder hits them, Shuanshan uses his powers to place them in a safe bubble and lands them safely on the ground, and he also tells them that amidst the thunder they should pay attention to the laws, if happen that the thunder dropped and the disciples become surprised. Soon the disciples begin to master the laws in a safe place away from the thunder, and Kinyan calls Shuanshan to join them, but he tells her that the laws are useless for him. Shuanshan begins to think about how he can refine his energies and become a human emperor, and soon the disciples come to him and tell him of their progress, but they also thank him and vows to follow him. He begins to think of how they would enter the heavenly realm as he is weak, and it would be shameful to say it. Meanwhile, Kuyuan goes to call an elder, and they begin to hurry towards the temple as Kuyuan tells them of how Kinyan and some of the other disciples went against the sect, but Elder Shi tells him that he would take care of it as he would not spare them lightly. Kuyuan also tells the elder how much the disciples, and suddenly Elder Shi yells at him asking him if he has forgotten the rules of the sect, that whether it is a disciple or a mountain guard, once he reaches the heaven stage, he can be promoted to being the elder of the sect. A member of the disciples asks Kinyan why Shuanshan asks them to go out, while he stayed inside to practice alone, and she replies him that he might be setting an example for them, implying that they should not slack their basic cultivation, even if they broke through, and suddenly they hear Kuyuan's voice telling them that he had already told the elders about what they have done. Then, he and the elders suddenly notices that they have all broken through and are already in the heavenly realm. The elder begins to think that if only one mountain guard broke through, they could call it an accident, but almost all of them broke through at the same time. Immediately, the elders begin to bow and call the disciples elders, which makes Kuyuan very angry, but Elder Shi suddenly hits him and calls him names for trying to trick them. Elder Shi asks the disciples how they should take care of Kuyuan, and Kinyan tells him that they should do to him as they please, and immediately they begin to beat Kuyuan for making them miss a great opportunity to cross to the other realm. Kinyan goes to tell Shuanshan that their upgrade into the other realm has caused fluctuations in the atmosphere which attracts other people. Kinyan explains the state of the sect and how other tribes have stepped over them for the past few years. Then he tells them to take care of it, and when he is done he will take out the raging fire cult. When they go outside, Han asks Kinyan what Shuanshan meant, and she tells him that he is clearly dissatisfied with the 3 sects, and she also adds that he meant that if the 3 sects agree, then it is not a problem, but if they do not agree, the sects would perish. The leaders of the 3 sect comes to Xuoyo sect, and soon they are confronted by the disciples and immediately the elder of the Wuji Palace. Kuhai immediately tries to attack Kinyan, but Han steps in and he faces him using the power of the heavenly realm. But Kuhai makes jest of him as he tells him he is just a new heavenly realm disciple, and he would die soon, but Han keeps on, using all his strength. Then, Han suddenly defeats Kuhai, and everyone in the place is shocked as Han broke through another realm by using the heavenly Tao Sanskrit on Kuhai. Kinyan asks Han if he is okay, and he yells her that he only followed what Shuanshan had taught them to do, and he finally broke into the Emperor realm. But on seeing that the other 2 elders from the sects bows to the disciples, as they begin to think of how terrifying the Xuoyo sect has become. Kinyan and Han goes to report back to Shuanshan that they have defeated and killed the 3 sect, just as he ordered, but he scolds them for not listening and misunderstanding his orders. He also asks them what they would do if the forces behind those sects retaliate, and he tells Han to pay more attention as Kinyan is a female, and she just passes judgment on her own. The 2 of them leave, and they begin to ask themselves if they have misunderstood Shuanshan's orders, and they decide to go and fight with the 3 sects so that they would not come back for them. While cultivating, Shuanshan begins to notice the drop of energy, and he also notices that the energy is not pure, then decides to go and check because he thinks the disciples must have done something wrong. But when he gets to the hall, he notices that the disciples have abused their powers. He sees that Elder Chaihu is scolding them, and as he sees him, The elder asks them if that is the senior they were talking about, but Kinyan tells the elder that he is the senior, but the elder should not be rude to him. Xuanchen tells them that it is a shame for the disciples to let an unpopular sect rub them down. Then Elder Chai, who tries to attack Xuanchen, but he is held down by Han. Then Xuanchen tells the elder to step aside, and he uses his powers to heal the wounded disciples. Elder Chai Hu becomes surprised as he is able to heal a lot of people at once. The disciples begin to beg Xuanchen that Elder Chai Hu is short-sighted, so he is not able to see that he is an ancestor, and Elder Chai Hu also begins to apologize to him and calls him his ancestor. Then the disciples bring out the treasure they gained from the three sects, and they also explain that they use some of it as weapons as they were already getting outnumbered. Xuanchen asks them where the table foot that was supposed to be at the sect is, and Elder Chai Hu explains to him that they have kept it in the ancestral hall. Xuanchen also promises them to build weapons for them later, but he tells them that there is a fight going on and he wants to interfere to make the people know that they are messing with the wrong people. Outside the mountain gate, the people of the Liunan sword sect and the leader of the Witchy Palace stand there as they wait for the messenger of the Raging Fire cult, so that the Exuoyo sect members would not escape. Suddenly, they hear a voice asking them what they were waiting for, and before they could recognize the voice, Xuanchen immediately beats up the leaders of the sects and tells them not to mess with the Exuoyo sect anymore. Xuanchen, along with his disciples, begins to fight the leader of the sects, and Xuanchen kills the leader of the Liuan sword sect, and the remaining leaders decide to join forces, so that they would be able to stop Xuanchen and his disciples. The other two leaders begin to form their powers to avenge the death of the third leader of the Liuan sword sect, and the disciples find it hard to resist the energy, but Xuanchen remains calm and tells himself that the remaining two leaders are just making things easy for him. The two leaders then join their powers together and aim it at Xuanchen and the disciples, but Xuanchen absorbs their powers and refines it into weapons for his disciples. The leaders become surprised as they see what Xuanchen did to their powers. Then they begin to lament that Xuanchen is making them look like fools. Xuanchen uses his powers to create an illusion, and the two leaders begin to ask each other what kind of man Xuanchen is. Xuanchen used the illusion technique on the three sects and then begin to run for their lives, as they know that is an ancient technique of the Exuoyo sect, which kills a lot of people within a mile. But Xuanchen laughs at them that they do not know the world, as the illusion technique kills within 100 miles at a time. So the members of the three sects goes to attack Elder Han and Luo Shengshu. They surround them, and the elder tells them that they also block them on their way back to the sect. But one of the members of the three sects calls for charge and tells the others that they must avenge the death of their master. They all begin to fight, and the elder tells Luo Shengshu to try to call the ancestor to save them, and she immediately sends a message and says she doesn't want to die in the midst of the members of the three sects. Suddenly, they begin to see a large amount of smoke, and when it got cleared, they see that their enemies have been attacked by the 1,000 illustration strangling formation which was done by Xuanchen, their ancestor. But when they see him, he faces Luo Shengshu and tells her that he has finally gotten her. Luo Shengshu becomes shocked as she asks Xuanchen what he is doing there, because she has abolished his dancing. The elders begin to ask him who he is, and Luo Shengshu tells them that he is the husband that was arranged for her by the family, but she has divorced him. The elder immediately tries to attack him, but Xuanchen immediately dodges it, and he hits the elder. Then he tells the elder that he is such a blind man. He then tells them that they have chosen the wrong person in their search to find a genius that their ancestor had told them to find. Xuanchen scolds the elder for making Luo Shengshu an elder when there are other disciples who could do more than her, and Luo gets furious. Then she immediately charges at Xuanchen, but he hits her and she falls down. The elder and other members of the sect present begin to ask her if she is alright, but she begins to wonder how his martial arts has improved, as she did not see him when he made his move. The sect elder threatens to fight and defeat Xuanchen for fighting his disciples and elders, but he is interrupted by a member of this sect that there is an attack coming, and he thinks it is from the three sects. Then the sect elder immediately yells at them to prepare for the attack from the enemies. Gu assists his people to cross over from the heavenly realm, and they begin to thank him and show appreciation to him. The elders from the sect become surprised at how they are able to survive the thunder tribulation. Gu looks at him fiercely and asks if he wants to teach him a lesson. At the Exuoyo sect hall, Elder Lu informs the sect master that he is just the son-in-law of the Lu family and was imprisoned 2 years after the Danishan was disabled. She begins to wonder how he can be the hermit senior of the hermit, which is the leader of the Exuoyo sect. The other members then warn her not to be rude to Elder Gu unless they will be rude to them, and they should not get blamed. She asks her sect master how he will face the ancestors when the time comes, seeing she is being dared. Gu Shuanshan asks Lua Shengshu if she can communicate with Shuoyo. The sect master becomes furious on hearing the name of their ancestor in the hall and asks him how he dares mention the name. Elder Gu provokes the sect master and he tries to attack Gu, but Elder Guy uses his fingers to catch the sword of the sect leader, asking how he could apologize and asks if he can afford it. Gu suddenly pushes him away and awakens the Xiaoyo statue in the hall, making them all surprised. They all become startled at the moving statue, and Elder Luo tells Gu that the ancestor is finished as he has disrespected the ancestor, and he has appeared to kill him. Suddenly, the statue bows before Elder Gu, and they suddenly become surprised at what is happening. Elder Gu asks again about them, telling him how to apologize and wonders if he can bear it. The sect master immediately bows before him and begins to ask for forgiveness, and Gu sits on the throne and Elder Luo becomes weak on everything that has been happening and begins to tell herself that everything happening cannot be possible. The statue immediately speaks, calling Gu master and telling him that he has not been able to find him for 100 years. Gu tells it to go back since it has ascended the sacred domain, and if he crosses the boundary, it will not be something it can bear. The statue immediately obeys and everyone bows to the ancestor. Lu becomes more surprised at what is happening and wonders how he became emperor of Shuoyo. She immediately bows to him and begs him to spare her life for the sake of husband and wife. Gu strikes her and calls for the head of the punishment hall, and Sen Shuoil steps forward. He orders him to take her to the punishment hall for 5 years and throw out the Shuoyo sect. Lu becomes angry at him for treating her in such a manner and tells him that her family will never forgive him. Gu immediately informs her that the entire Lu family has been killed by him and only her remains. Lu becomes very angry and tells him to kill her with just one sword. Gu tells her not to be so cheap, and he wants her to see how his Gu family rises, so there is no need for him to want her dead. The Punisher immediately puts his chains around her neck and tells his master that she will not say a word of disrespect again, and cuts her mouth and drags her away. The sect chief then asks what Gu will want to do next, and Gu asks, "Where is the head of the raging fire cult?" At the fire hall, the leader wonders how a sect will declare war on the other 3 sects, and his servant tells him that the envoys they sent were also killed and they did not take them seriously. The master Lai Dian immediately orders for his men to suppress the Xuoyo sect immediately. Gu immediately breaks in through the roof and begins to kill the members of the fire cult. Elder Gu attacks the entire fire cult and kills them all, and kills the fire cult master by killing him with fire, making the rest of his members flee for their lives. One of the members of the sect immediately wonders how the raging fire cult was able to be conquered overnight after they suppressed the entire cult for hundreds of years. The master immediately tells them to follow the new master and not make any fuss on a kind of scene like that. One of the sect members immediately warned him to control his mouth. Gu immediately calls every member of the sect and tells them to come to him. They immediately respond and they assist him in destroying the fire cult in just one night, raising the Xuoyo sect that has been down for so long. At the primordial tree, Gu thinks the powers of the Xuoyo sect is declining, but he is shocked to see it has grown bigger than he imagined. He sees that the sect has already been rectified, and as long as the primordial fruit is back, it can completely break Yuan's chaotic celestial body. Suddenly, he hears a voice telling him to pay homage and immediately shoots at it. He notices one of his disciples, who asks him why he hit Xiaoming as soon as he came up. She explains to him that Xiaoming was listening when he taught disciple Xuoyo and tells him that wisdom has evolved after hundreds of years. Gu immediately remembers her and she hugs him. He immediately calls for Han Kong and sends and tells him to call all the heavenly stage above the heavenly realm to the primordial blessed land. Ports to Gu and assembles with the entire sect and everyone from the heavenly sect to the primordial tree. And Gu immediately begins to move the Lingyan temple to the primordial tree to nourish each other. They all become surprised at how great his powers have become, and Gu informs them to begin practicing. They continue to practice till nightfall, and one of the sect members informs their master that they seem to have sensed the thunder tribulation from heaven, and Gu immediately turns them into stars, and they begin to suspect if their master wants to introduce all the laws of heaven into the primordial tree. Immediately, Xiaoming comes out of the tree and thanks her master for his great kindness. Xiaoming complains about the thunder messing up her brows, and she hands her master the primordial fruit. He harnesses the power of the primordial fruit and begins to be congratulated by everyone in his sect for achieving another level of great strength. At the Gu family hall, Gu's sister begins to practice her martial arts, and she thanks her brother Gu as she can finally practice her martial arts. Everyone becomes surprised at how he was able to transform the great primordial tree into a demon form, and it bears the primordial fruit that can survive the catastrophe. Xiaoming tells her master to praise her, but he refuses, and the most surprising thing is how he managed to subdue the Xuoyo sect. The entire sect congratulates Miss Yuhan, and who tells them and the sect leader that in the future, they will talk about their seniority. Yuan asks her brother if their father could witness the rise of the Gu family with his own eyes and how it would be. Gu ignores her and immediately informs his second uncle to walk with him. Gu asks his second uncle about his father's movements 2 years ago. He remembers that Gu Qianhua, who is the original owner, has always cared for him since when he was younger. He begins to remember his father's teachings and tells his second uncle that he was the first one to object when joining the Lu family. In the end, his father could not hold back his clansmen and left in anger. His uncle tells him everything about his father's disappearance, as he could no longer hide it from him. He also tells him that his father did all that to save him. Gu becomes surprised, and his uncle tells him that it all started with his mother. On hearing his mother, he quickly asks his uncle about her death caused by dystocia. His uncle tells him that it was the rumors that carried it and informs him the true situation regarding his mother about how she was taken away by her clan after she gave birth to Yuhan. Gu becomes very surprised, and his uncle quickly reminds him that his strength is powerful, and Gu orders to get them back. Gu gets close to the Wang prefecture and notices that the closer he gets to it, the stronger he becomes and plans to use it to practice and also help Yuan find her parents, which will be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Gu notices that that place has the most spiritual energy, so it is not too late, and he begins to practice. He begins to practice, and a girl asks his grandpa why someone set a formation at the entrance of the cave. Suddenly, his grandpa comes out of the cave and notices that the girl is a 4th rank phantom formation used to assist cultivation, and it is not offensive. But since he could not get out, he plans to sharpen Gu's state of mind. The girl sees how unlucky she is as she cannot escape the need to practice whenever she accompanies her grandfather to collect medicine. The next morning, Gu wakes up and Tonger immediately notifies her grandpa, but he tells her not to be rude. Gu stares at them and wonders if they are trapped there by the formation of the seat. The old man asks where he got the knowledge about his sect, and he notices he got them from the Xuoyo sect. The old man tries to talk to Gu, but he leaves telling him that he has something important that he would like to do and he must not be disturbed. The old man asks himself why he did not remember that the Xuoyo sect had such a power. Tonger explains about it to her grandpa, but he tells her that she is wrong as he cannot break through the phantom formation, but Gu was able to. Tonger becomes surprised and her grandpa plans to use the opportunity to attack the 6th rank formation master. At the Wangu Prefecture main city, Gu's uncle hands him the jade pendant that was left behind by his father, and Gu uses the pendant to activate the divination of sky and stars art to travel thousands of miles away to search for Xian and Xiaoyu. After searching through the space, he finally finds them. At a restaurant, Xiaoyu warns her mistress to stop drinking, but Xian shouts at her to leave her alone. Everyone in the restaurant suddenly begins to wonder why Xian from the Qi family will come to a restaurant for a drink. They begin to talk about how Master Han has taken a fancy to her and is about to come and propose marriage to her. They begin to wonder why she is frowning. Meanwhile, Xian orders Xiaoyu to fill up her cup, as she is obviously not happy and not in good mood. Gu walks into the restaurant and manages to catch the attention of Xian. Gu orders 2 caddies of wine, and he begins to wait for his order to arrive. Xian immediately cannot control herself on seeing him and how handsome he looks, and immediately asks him if he is not bored drinking alone. She proposes to drink together with him, but Gu offers her a seat and tells her that he has been looking for a way to start a conversation with her in the first place, as that was his reason for coming all the way down to the restaurant. Xian stares at him and finds him strange and asks him where he is from and why he is going to Wangu Prefecture. Gu immediately responds to her and tells her that he is from the Xian kingdom and he has come all the way to find relatives of his. He pauses for a while and asks the 2 girls, Xian and Xiaoyu, if they have seen his father, and he brings out a picture of his father and shows it to them. Xiaoyu immediately recognizes him and asks her if it is her Uncle Gu. Xian also becomes more surprised on seeing the picture placed before them, and Gu asks them if they know him judging from their reaction, and how they quickly identified him. Xiaoyu replies that they do not just know him, but it's more than knowing, as her mistress has saved his life too. She explains to Gu how his father entered Wangu Prefecture, and how he was seriously injured and passed out by the side of the road, and he was taken to the Qi family by Xian and healed. She explains further to him that their master finds out that he was actually the son-in-law of the Long family, and she never saw him come out again. She also tells him that she has heard rumors, and it seems that he is under house arrest by the Long family. Xian immediately cuts her off and warns her to mind all she says to Elder Gu. Gu asks two girls to show him the way to meet the Long family, but they warn him that he will end up like his father, who was able to get in but not out. Gu tells them not to worry about them, but they warn him, still telling him that he is not aware of how powerful the Long family is, and give him a brief lecture about the Long family. She then advises him to find a way to drag his father out instead of focusing on going and meeting them. Gu asks her if she knows a way to lure him out, but she tells him that she has a way only if he is willing to make a sacrifice. Gu asks her what that will be, and she asks him to join her P family and marry her so as to get things to his advantage. Gu gets angry and stands up, telling her not to bother, as what he is going to do, no one can stop it. The serpent grabs hold of Gu's legs and tells him that her mistress has helped his father, and now it is time to repay her kindness. Gu uses his power to hold her down, and she tells him to let her go, as he is not worthy of her lady, as he is heartless. Gu keeps her quiet and releases her. They get into the cart, and she apologizes to him for making a bad move, simply because she does not want to go back to Master Han. They come up with a plan to get into the Long family compound, and Gu agrees to disguise himself to be married to her, so that he can get his father out, and sees it as a very good plan. They begin to prepare plans to sneak into the kingdom, and they tell Gu to come up with a name that no one will recognize as the leader of a sect. They plan on how to go about their business, and Gu agrees finally to all they have said. They arrive at their destination, and Master Hanmo welcomes Han Xian back, as he has been waiting for her for a really long time. Hanmo immediately sees a man with her coming down from the cart and asks who he is in an angry tone. Xian ignores him and tells him that Gu is her friend, and Han asks her what kind of friend takes the same car with her. Xian replies rudely to him, and immediately the Qi family patriarch comes out and asks them why they are still playing outside all day. Her father tells her that someone needs to take care of her, and she affirms her father's words. The father begins to wonder if she has had a thought about the discussion they talked about a week ago concerning marriage. She immediately takes Gu to her father and tells him that she wants to be taken care of by him in the future. Her father greets Gu, and Gu tells him that the sect master and the others are still dealing with the aftermath of the extermination of the fire cult, and he is just there to gain some insight. Xian's father immediately confirms the rumors on how the Xuoyo sect eliminated the fire cult, and plans to not let him out of his sight as he appears dangerous. Han immediately calls her father and reminds him that he has agreed to the marriage between Xian and him before. Her father tells him that he cannot go against his daughter's wishes on who to marry, and Han challenges Gu to fight him like a true warrior. Xian plans to stop him, but Gu agrees to battle him in 5 days, and whoever wins will get to marry Xian. Gu tells Han that whoever wins will marry Xian, and Han agrees and plans to kill him after the 5 days, and tells him not to die before then also. Back at Xian's chambers, she apologizes to him, telling him that she did not expect that things will turn out the way it did, and warns him to get out of where he is quickly, and she will figure everything out her own way. Gu tells her that if he leaves, it would spoil the reputation of the Xuoyo sect, and she should not bother herself, as he does not pay attention at all. The servant of Xian tells him that even if he is in the Xian kingdom, his strength is not bad, but in Wang Prefecture, he can only be defeated. She continues to yell at him, telling him that they are better than the Xuoyo sect in martial arts, and if he doubts, he should try her first. Gu remains speechless and drops his cup, telling her to try it. They go out to battle, and she plans on showing him what advanced martial arts is. Xiaoyu launches her Dragon Fist attack and begins to go towards him, but he grabs her neck, making her wonder how she is able to be defeated by a martial artist from a small place and still lost in seconds. He asks her if there are still people practicing Tanggang art, and Xian asks him how he knows Tanggang art, and tells him that it is her family's secret, and she practices it secretly too. Gu tells them how old their family is, and they both wonder how he got to know, and he remains speechless. Gu immediately remembers once when he cautioned one of his disciples regarding the Tanging art, and she tells him that she does not care, and she wants her master to protect her every time. Zion wonders how he is able to know everything regarding the practice. Gu tells her that he was so confused that he wanted to marry one of the little 7 descendants, and it's a mess of generations. At the pill room, Xiaoyu asks Zinian if he can make pill, as she has never seen such recipes, but Zion tells her not to talk yet, and he tells them to watch carefully. Gu began to practice the martial arts and came up with the 4 patterned spirit pills, making them wonder how he could refine so much at once. Zion immediately bows to him and asks him for forgiveness. Gu hands them the pill, telling them to take it first, and they begin to notice how hot their body is becoming. But Zion tells her servant that the master is only trying to protect them. He explains the art to them and how to practice it, and immediately, Zion notices that she has broken through to the late stage of the void realm. Gu hands them some awakening pills and tells them to give it to the clan men who have also practiced the arts, and tell them to use the moves he just showed them, and it will be fine. The girls then hurry to inform their father of what the young master has done and what he has taught them, and immediately he orders them to take the pill to everyone in the Qi family, and they should practice it diligently. He goes to his daughter and thanks her for doing a great job for the family and asks her how she knows him. Zion immediately tells her father the entire truth, and he becomes surprised. The father decides not to spoil his interests and decides to find a way to invite Gu out. He also tells his daughter that it will be a good thing to get married to him and get his advice on the pill. 5 days later, Zian's father informs Han to stay safe as they prepare for the battle between Han and Gu. Han Ding tells Patriarch Kai that he just felt his aura, and could it be that he has broken through the truth return. Kai invites Han Ding inside, and they are warned to be careful of their words since they came in to witness a battle. Immediately, the patriarch of the Long family, Long Yongyi, steps into the residence, also to witness the duel. Long Bin immediately begins to be rude to his uncle while they come in to witness the battle, but Sinang cautions him not to dare it again. Bin tells her that it was only at her pleading that the clansman reluctantly spared his life, and what qualification does she think such a waste has to be his uncle? Bin tells her that he is afraid that he is still locked up at the dungeon as a dog. Gu immediately comes in and strikes him down with lightning, and he asks how he is able to escape from the Lu family. Gu tells them that the Lu family has been solved, and he is here to take them away from the temple. Sinang asks if it is really him and tells him that she would want to take a look at him. She tells him that he is all grown up, and she can hardly recognize him. She tries to touch him, and he pushes her away, and tells her that he did not adapt to being a son. She asks him if he is angry because his mother left without saying goodbye, and his father tells him that he has wronged his mother, and tells him what the Lu family did. He explains to him why she had to leave so as to save him from being killed by the Lu family, and it was not until father found her that she negotiated with the Long family. She tells Quinmo to stop talking, and Gu sees that she has really suffered a lot, and tells them that he has come to pick them up. He also tells them that Yuan has been thinking about him. Suddenly, a member of the Long family comes to attack him, but he uses his powers to bring him down. Gu looks and notices that it is his second brother from the Long family. His brother insists on killing him for attacking Biner, but seeing he still has some value to the Long family, he will spare him from dying. Gu's mother immediately stops him and tells him that she will not allow him to lay a hand on Gu. Immediately, Master Qi comes to inform Master Gu that the competition is about to start and Master Han is waiting for him. He comes and tells Long that he cannot hurt Master Gu and asks him to give him a face about a truce first. Long laughs as he notices that Gu was the one who provoked the Han family. Gu annoys Long even more, and Biner suddenly begins to wake up, making him move his attention to Biner. Long decides to let him go because of Master Tia and hopes he survives the competition. At the competition arena, everyone begins to talk about how the Xuoyo sect dares to challenge the Han sect after destroying the fire cult. The fight begins and Han launches the first attack and tells him that he will let Gu know the consequences of offending him. Gu dodges the attack and hits Han with a fast attack, making him fall to the ground, causing his father to come to his aid. His father becomes surprised as he did not see Gu make a move. Gu plans to leave with his parents as he is in a hurry, and the Long leader becomes surprised. Long watches him with surprise, and Gu's mother goes to him and asks him if he is okay. And Long stands up and begins to laugh, telling him that he is worthy of having a Long family bloodline, and he has decided to make him one of the Long family members due to his wonderful performance in the fight. Gu's mother becomes thankful as Long sees that he has extraordinary talents, and he will be useful to him. Gu immediately asks him when he said he wants to be his family member, and declines the offer of the Long family in front of everyone, making them shocked. They all become angry at him, and threaten to let him pay with his life, but Gu calms Patriarch Han down, and Master Kai steps forward to inform them that his son agreed to the contract of paying with his life, as it is a life-and-death contract. Elder Han asks if he wants to meddle into the affairs, but Master Kai agrees to care about him because they agreed to a contract and he will protect him. Master Han informs him that they have not married, but if he plans to interfere, he should not blame his family for being rude. The Long family immediately notices that everyone in the Qi family has broken through the late stage of the Void stage. But the elder of the Han Empire tells his men not to be afraid, and whoever kills Gu will be rewarded, and they begin to attack. The Han family suddenly sees the members of the Xuoyo sect as they yell at them, asking them why they would dare to touch their young master. Xuanchen tells them that they were too slow, and they remember what happened in a restaurant days before. Qingyan decides that she would hoe and help Xuanchen, but the sect master tries to stop her. Then she tells him that they have practiced diligently according to the exercises passed down by the master, and all of them have entered the 10,000 law stage. The sect master also tells her that Xuanchen had told them to come to the Wangu prefecture after they are done dealing with the raging fire matters, but he did not say what it was for. The sect master also adds that Xuanchen's martial Dao is amazing, and no one can force him to do anything he does not want to do, and another disciple tells her that Xuanchen would be probably enjoying himself. The sect master begins to wonder if Xuanchen has any intentions, as he is about to get married to the young lady of the Kai family, but he tells himself that he dare not expose his master's intentions. Soon Xuanchen orders them that roles would be given, and he tells them not to dirty the Kai family yard, and suddenly, the Xuoyo sect begins to fight with the Han family, and in a moment, the Xuoyo sect wipes out the Han family by killing them all. The people who were watching all along became very surprised as a small sect could defeat the one and only Han family of the Wangu prefecture. As Chen tries to attack his uncle, his mother begins to run after him, and he tells her not to plead for his uncle after he had treated her in a bad manner. But she tells him that she is not begging him because of his uncle, but because of himself. She tells him that she does not want everyone to start talking about him, that he is the one that murdered his uncle. As they walk past the crowd, Chan is tempted as he begins to hear what the people are saying about him, but his mother tells him to avoid criticism. But he begins to think in his mind that if it were not for his mother, he would have carried out his plans. As Chan turns to talk to someone, Xuanchen uses his powers to collect his sword from him, and immediately Xuanchen tells his disciples that they should leave. At the Kai family side hall, the elders begin to thank Xuanchen for helping them, and an elder tells him that he has told Zion that she should prepare for the marriage. Xuanchen asks if it is already time for the marriage, and the elder tells him that he needs to quickly put on the wedding dress, as Zion would be angry if he does not wear it on time. The wedding starts, and the bride and everyone begins to wait for the groom, and Zion begins to wonder if she is getting married because of a pill of Dao, and suddenly Xuanchen arrives. Soon the wedding rites begins, and Xuanchen and Zion begins by saluting to the elders. Then Zion is asked why she wants to get married to Xuanchen, and she says she wants to have the Dao pill. And soon they finish the rites, and the disciples becomes excited as they say some prayers to them and pronounce them husband and wife. The couples are taken to the bridal chambers, and Zion remembers what she has been told about what usually goes down in the bridal chambers. Then she begins to panic as she does not know what to do to make Xuanchen want her. She tries to remove her dress to seduce him, and she begins to think that he is falling for it, but when she lays down, Xuanchen asks her why she is lying down. Zion begins to feel awkward, and Xuanchen begins to give her the steps to the Dao pill technique, as he tells her that he has taught her the exercises before, and he does not want her to waste her money to practice it. He also helps her to start her cultivation, and she begins to feel how good his martial art is. The next day, Xuanchen and Zion come out of their chambers, and the disciples begin to wonder why they woke up late, and Zion's face begins to get red, and she quickly runs as she tells them that she wants to go and serve her mother tea. Xuanchen goes to see his mother, and when he gets there, his mother asks him what he did with his new bride, and she also explains to him that she needs grandchildren from him. He changes the topic of their conversation as he asks his mother why the Long family wants her to reach the 5th rank formation master before letting her go, and she explains to him that it is because of her skills and abilities since when she was little. After listening to her story, Xuanchen concludes that there is a need for him to visit the Long family. In the Long family's secret room, the patriarch and other members of the family begin to move outside, but they are met by a disciple who tells them that Shuanshan has broken the guarding formation of the Long family. As the patriarch of the Long family goes outside, he sees that a lot of their guards has been killed by Shuanshan, and he asks them if the formation is what they are proud of, as it is very vulnerable. The patriarch becomes furious, and he immediately charges at Shuanshan, who immediately stops him with his hand. Shuanshan then uses his powers to control the patriarch's body, and makes him kneel as he tells him that he has to kneel when he is talking to him. Long Quine, who is the father of the patriarch, tries to avenge his son, but as he moves closer to Shuanshan, he notices something, and he immediately kneels as he calls Shuanshan an expert. Long Quine explains to him how he was able to step into the fifth formation master as a result of his enlightenment. But suddenly a member of the family tells Quine that Shuanshan is the son of their fourth sister. Then Quine immediately realizes that Shuanshan is his grandson. Shuanshan tells Quine that he is his own mother's son, but not his grandson, and Quine begins to apologize to him. But Shuanshan says he would only forgive him if he gives the treasure map to his mother. The patriarch begins to protest that he cannot give out the family treasures, but the old man shuts him up, and Quine tells him to come inside the secret room. Inside the Long family secret room, Shuanshan breaks the prohibition on the treasure map, and the patriarch becomes surprised, and he says that generations of the Long family spent years and efforts on breaking the restrictions, but Shuanshan is able to break it easily. Suddenly, they begin to see relics of stars, and as they pay more attention to it, they see a saint and identify it as the powerhouse second only to the emperor, and even in the entire Qingyan continent, and he is also a very important figure. Shuanshan remembers how some ancient saints were near the end of their lifespan, or before their ascension. They would store their lives' accumulation in the ruins and leave it to those who are destined. Shuanshan thinks that it was a treasure, but it was the relic of the saints, and he begins to think that the breath he is holding is for Xiaoshan. Shuanshan calls on the Xuoyo sect people, and tells them that the location of the relic is Kangshe territory full of spirits. Then he tells them that it is the best choice for the Xuoyo sect to move. Chai Hu remembers how Shuanshan had told them that he had called them to Wangu Prefecture to find a more suitable place for them to cultivate, and he also remembers how he told him personally to escort his parents to reunite with Yuhan. Chai Hu then tells Qingyan that they are not supposed to talk about what their master is going to do, but follow his orders strictly. Qingyan becomes worried as her master just got married, and he went away. Then she begins to wonder if his bride, Zillian, would get angry. Zion becomes shocked as she reads the letter Shuanshan has left for her, stating that he has gone, and he also adds that he has left his name, so that when she wants to prepare a divorce, she would not have to look for him in order to get his name. Meanwhile, Shuanshan and his disciples go to a cliff, and they find the location of the treasure. Then Shuanshan tells them that it seemed that the phantom of the ancient saints emerged, exposing the location of the treasure. Suddenly, Shuanshan uses his fist to break the cliff, and it reveals an underground passageway, but the disciples become shocked, and Shuanshan tells them to keep up with him. They all enter, but the disciples are scared as the place looks strange and scary. Soon they come across a lot of treasures, and Qingyan becomes excited as she thanks Shuanshan. But they suddenly hear a voice that tells them not to lay their hands on the treasure, and immediately the unknown voice begins to attack, and Shai Hu tells his master to be careful. The leader of the Xuoyo sect is being attacked, and they are told to either go or die, but the leader notices that they are all golden body realm, and they are all strong. The leader asks Gu if he is their leader, and Gu advises him to be sensible and get out of there, otherwise he will know what will happen to him. The leader becomes impatient and tries to attack, as they are not worthy of facing their master Gu. The leader pushes him away and asks them how they dare come to snatch the saint treasure, since they are from a small sect. They stare at the sword and try to attack, but they are brought down by the defenders of the saint treasure. They begin to mock Gu, saying he is too scared to make a move, and he is just watching his men get beaten up. The leader of the defenders then calls Gu a stray dog and also calls him weak, but he is suddenly beaten by the sect master, who is angry at how his master is suddenly humiliated by the defenders. The members of the Xuoyo sect become angry and begin to take out the defenders one after the other, and tell them never to underestimate them ever again. They don't go to bow to Gu, and tell them that they have comprehended the true meaning of the emperor's scripture and vowed to protect the masters to their death. Gu tells them that they are doing well, and it seems that they all have not forgotten the most important message he taught them. The leader of the defenders asks them what is going on, and they all comprehend the meaning of the emperor's scripture. He thinks that even though the emperor's lineage is inherited, it is rare for one or two people in the same era to comprehend the mystery of the emperor's scripture. He looks at them and notices how young they look, and yet they understand the scriptures and its meanings. One of his followers stands up and tells Gu that she is embarrassed for him as sect master. Both eliminated their opponent with one move, but she used 2 full moves. The leader of the opposition asks how she is able to say that, and if she is not ashamed, as she is clearly slapping Kangxia warriors in the face. He tells Miss Qin that they have all comprehended the true meaning of the emperor's book, and they are outnumbered and she should come out. The members of the Suoyo sect continue to stare at him, and they suddenly see a descendant of the Qin family, Qinwan. Wan tells him that she wants 90% and he agrees. Wan smiles and points her sword towards her master, and they all notice that she is wielding the emperor's sword. The sect master tells him that the sword is an extremely lethal weapon, and the sword is extraordinary, and it has followed the emperor for many years, and has been nourished by the emperor's energy and blood. He tells them that the power contained in it is beyond anyone's imagination. One of the sect members plan to get the sword, but the sect master informs them that it is not like any other sword, and it is totally different. He warns them that if they are not careful, they will be bitten by the sword. She tells them to get out of there, but Gu asks if she is a descendant of Qin Tian. She immediately asks him how knowledgeable he is and tells him that it is disrespectful for him to call her ancestors' names directly. She immediately tries to attack Gu, but Gu blocks the attack and calls the sword to come to him. Qinwan becomes surprised at what just happened and how he was able to take the sword from her. If you like this recap, do let me know in the comments, and obviously leave your likes too. Do not forget to share with your friends and subscribe. Above all, activate your notification bell so you don't miss the next recap when it drops. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.